Winter is coming. We may get a stark one if global warming has anything to do with it, which means plenty of snow that's going to affect our range. And unlike our combustion engine buddies, we can't just go to Esso's to fill it with gas when we want. In this video, I'll be looking at my top 10 tips and tricks for driving your Tesla Model 3 in winter. I'll keep it brief so it doesn't drag on. Winter hammers your range and efficiency of your Tesla Model 3, and the car's dynamics handle a little bit differently in the snow and ice thanks to the lack of gears and regen braking. This video looks at the top 10 tips for driving your Tesla Model 3 in winter so you don't get stranded in the snow and ice. So let's crack on with number 10. So it's inevitable, even if you keep your Tesla Model 3 in a garage, that moisture is going to build up at some point. It might be that you've been at work all day and then you drive home with frost on your car, put your Model 3 in the garage, and then that moisture is going to melt, but not completely evaporate because your garage isn't that warm. Then you drive to work the next day, that moisture then freezes and freezes whatever it's around in that shut position, which would apply to these bad boys, the wing mirrors. So top tip number 1 is make sure you disable the auto fold feature so that your wing mirrors are always out, so that if they do freeze, they're frozen in the out position, which is going to save putting extra pressure and resistance on the motors and hopefully keep them working for a lot longer. If you park your Model 3 outside and it looks like snow, it might be just worth putting your windscreen wipers in the service position, which flicks them up the windscreen just a little bit, and that way you'll be able to clean the snow easier off your car and make sure your windscreen wipers are working perfectly when you set off. Talking of cleaning the snow off, that's my next top tip. Tesla went out of their way to make your Model 3 as aerodynamic as possible. They shaved the door handles off, they gave you spaced aged aero wheels. So if you leave loads of snow on your car, first of all, you're changing the shape, which is going to affect the aerodynamics. Secondly, you're adding a lot of weight. So make sure you clear the snow off the boot and the frunk, because don't forget there's not an engine in an EV, so it's not naturally going to melt, which means it could just fly up in your face as you're driving along. And there's another reason why you want to definitely clear it off the boot. If I demo with my snow simulation device here, as we open the boot up, you can see the snow is going to, oh no, just drop down, and then it slides down and straight into the boot. Because the Tesla Model 3's boot lip is actually remarkably small, so you can see there's not much difference there between the window and where the boot starts, so you're going to end up with a lot of snow in your boot if you're not careful and don't clean it off. That might be a really common problem with saloons, but I've never owned one. It's just something I've thought of, so if that's normal for saloons, don't panic. But if you've never owned one before, bear that in mind. In winter, make the most of your Tesla Model 3's built-in fridge. Bet you didn't find that in the manual, did you? I am, of course, talking about the frunk because it's perfect. It's completely exposed to all the elements. There's no cabin heat goes in there, and you get all the wind chill on your front of your Model 3. I keep cans of Coke in there all the time to keep them nice and chilled when I'm out and about, and I just fancy a cold drink. Driving down to Devon soon, I'm going to put some beers in there, so I can crack open some nice cold brewskis after a 5-hour drive. If you go to the supermarket, you could put your refrigerator stuff in there, or your freezer stuff even. If you hit any roadkill, it's going to keep that nice and fresh. Bodies, they're going to keep nice and cold in there as well. Only joking, obviously. Can't fit a body in there. They do have to go in the back, so just wrap them tight so that they don't smell at all. But the frunk is perfect for keeping something nice and cold in winter. Moving on to energy usage now in winter, and we need to talk about regen braking, because there's 2 factors when you're using regen braking in winter you need to consider. First of all, the little dashed line on the screen means that your car is not going to accept as much charge as regen braking is going to create, and therefore your car won't slow down as quickly as you're used to. So if you're used to 1-foot driving where you just take your foot off the accelerator and your car slows to a stop, chances are you're going to have to use your brake a little bit more often. The second point to consider about regen braking, and this is not from personal experience, but I have read around the subject, is the fact you might want to reduce it in winter. And that's because, as I've already said, it's like putting the brakes on your car. And if you hit a bit of icy road or snowy conditions, you want full control over the braking of your Model 3. Regen doesn't allow you to do that. So you might want to go into the settings and just change the regen to low as opposed to full, so that you've got complete control over slowing down your Model 3. I'm sure Tesla will have built in an ABS version for regen braking, but just in case they haven't, you need to bear it in mind if you've got icy conditions. When the snow properly comes down, I'm going to take my Tesla Model 3 out for a spin in it, just to see how well the rear wheel driving handles the snow. Considering I've just told you to turn off regen braking, the rest aren't really going to make much sense because the rest are all focused on saving energy, and saving energy. The Tesla Model 3's range is hammered in winter because you have the heating on, which is very power hungry, and then the rolling resistance is increased because of wind, slush, snow and rain. I've already said about clearing the snow off your car to improve the aerodynamics, and if you still have them, maybe consider putting on your aero wheels again just to eke out that little bit of extra range. The heater is the worst way to heat the passenger compartment. It uses so much energy, so if you can, use the heated seats for individual passengers in your car. And don't forget, tyre pressures make a difference on the range, so make sure they're at the correct setting before you set off, and it might make the ride a little bit more uncomfortable, but it'll get your range a lot further. You might want to put your Model 3 in chill mode. I know it's perfectly named to winter, but that just tones down the performance a little bit, so it'll take a little bit longer to accelerate, which you might want considering winter is going to be a lot slippier conditions anyway. If you don't want to sacrifice the heater and put a jumper on, then my next top winter tip is about driving around with your battery as fully charged as you feel comfortable with. Now, I'm not saying 100% here, just maybe a little bit higher than you normally would. The AAA found that if you were driving an EV around in -5 conditions with the heater on, your range dropped by 41%. And even if you didn't have the heater on, the range dropped by 12% just due to the adverse conditions. So if you're used to setting your maximum charge, say 60%, you might want to change that to 80% in winter, because then that gives you that little bit of extra buffer and compensates for the increased energy use. Just bear in mind, you probably still don't want to charge it to 100% because that's not great for the longevity of the battery. The other thing to consider is you might sometimes get a little blue snowflake appear on your display, and that just means that the battery is too cold to get the full capacity out of it. Once your battery warms up, you'll get full access to all the cells again, but initially that will be a little bit lower. This leads on nicely from the previous one, but the other one is keep your Model 3 plugged in all the time. That way you know it's going to be set to your maximum charge all the time, which is really good. But the other huge benefit is you can preheat your car before you get into it. And that way it draws the energy from the charger in the house or wherever you're charging it from, rather than your Tesla Model 3's battery. If I'm using a public charger, I will literally set my heating onto full, seats and all, before I get back to the car. It feels like an oven when you open it, to be fair, but my plan is that all that heat is going to be stored in the fabric and the seats and all that interior. So it'll keep my Model 3 warmer for longer when I'm driving along and rely less on the heating system. Leading on nicely from keeping it plugged in all the time is about using departure mode. Now, you don't ideally want to keep a battery charged to 100%, but if you do have to, you want to keep it there for the least amount of time as possible. Departure mode allows you to do that because if you set a time that you're leaving, say 7 o'clock, and you've set your limit on your battery charge to 100%, the Model 3 will work out what time it needs to start charging to meet that 100% deadline. The other huge bonus of that is not only does it not keep your battery at 100% for longer than it needs to be, but your battery will be warm when you set off, which means your regen braking will likely be higher, which means your efficiency usage will be better. Worst case scenario, you get trapped in the snow because your Tesla Model 3 is rear wheel drive. What are you going to do? In the past, you might have used your gears to get out of that situation. Well, thankfully, Tesla thought of that by putting a slip start option within your controls. It's designed to get you out of sand, mud and snow, thankfully. I'm intrigued to see how well it works because I'm yet to use it, but I've been told that actually EVs are better in the snow because of the instant torque to the wheels gives them better control to get out of sticky situations. Fingers crossed we don't need to find out this winter. As you remember at the start of the video, I said about protecting ourselves and others, so my final tip is about adding a safety pack somewhere in your Tesla Model 3, so that if the worst case scenario happens and you get stranded in the snow, you'll have some basic supplies to keep you going. You've got loads of storage space in the Model 3, so you might want to keep it in the front, or in the boot there's that massive hidden compartment under the first layer that you might want to use. I keep in there blankets, coats, walkers, Mars bar, cans of Coke, whatever you want to keep yourself comfortable. Because don't forget, if you do get stuck in the snow, the battery is only going to last for so long, whereas a combustion engine can kind of keep you warm and keep you running overnight. The battery probably isn't going to last you all night, even if you keep the air conditioning on quite low. So be prepared for those eventualities where you might get stranded and you won't have access to the bare necessities. So there you have it. The key message then, keep your battery topped up, drive as efficiently as you can, and have a backup plan if all else fails. Remember, you've got lots of storage, so it's not going to be the end of the world if you do have to keep some extra supplies in there. Now you watch it go be one of the mildest winters on record, and all of that will be completely irrelevant. I mean, take today. It's meant to be winter. It looks like I'm filming in the middle of summer. Next week's video is in honour of Halloween, so I'll be testing autopilot in the dark, just to see how it handles itself on dark road environments, because I have noticed it keeps missing the odd thing like a traffic light or a junction. If you don't want to miss that, hit subscribe down the bottom right hand corner, and if you like my proactive approach to giving you winter driving tips in October, can you hit the thumbs up button as well? That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next week.